Jets fans, I hope you're as excited about the start of the season as I am. And to celebrate, we're chatting with Kevin He of the Niagara IceDogs, a player who was just named to the captaincy of Niagara. We'll join with him in just a quick minute on tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets.
You're Locked On the Hockey Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey friends, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Thanks for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day every day. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. Doing so, of course, is always free of charge and ensures you never miss another episode. Most of all, though, we just love and appreciate your support. Tonight's episode is an extra special evening. Obviously, we have Kevin He on this episode. It was a great chat. We asked him, a couple of different questions. I was able to squeeze in a few questions from fans. So we'll have him in just a quick moment. But before we go too much further, did want to let you know that tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and be sure to use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Stay tuned to hear more about how Gametime can save you time and money on buying your next event tickets. Without further ado, though, we are welcoming Kevin He to the Locked On Jets podcast. Hey, Locked On Winnipeg Jets fans, welcome to tonight's show. We are welcoming special guest Kevin He from the Niagara IceDogs. If you aren't familiar, you're going to want to start to get to know Kevin's name. He's an amazing prospect for the Jets, and the start to the season at Niagara has been really awesome. Kevin, from a team that was really at the bottom of the standings last year and really went through some adversity, this year, the IceDogs are seemingly just flying, and you've been a huge part of that offense. What do you think, compared to last year, is maybe different? What's really changed in driving this year's amazing start?
Yeah, I think to start off, we have unbelievable buy-in from everyone on the team, and obviously we made a lot of big trades this summer, and we have a pretty solid decor going into it, and it's shown in games, and it's helped us have the record that we have now.
And, from your own offensive production this year, it's taken a really big uptick immediately. You've had a lot of success. Has anything felt different for you? Is it still business as usual? Things maybe just breaking a little bit more for you?
Yeah, kind of still just business as usual. Just try to keep my focus on, winning as many games as I can and try and do whatever I can to help the team. So for me, nothing has changed too much, but yeah.
And are you, what are you looking forward to most for the rest of the season? What's your big goal?
I think making the playoffs and making a really good push for it. I think that's probably my biggest goal right now. It's our main focus.
Yeah, and I'm sure the IceDogs fans are looking for some postseason action, and it's going to be hopefully a preview of things to come once you start moving up in the rankings. But you were also just announced as the captain for Niagara. What are you looking forward to in this role, and what do you think this is going to mean for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's a huge honor, obviously, and I think for me, it's just trying to guide the younger players. Like kind of, when I came in the league, I looked up to some of the older players on the team, and they kind of showed me the ropes. So I think now that I'm in a position to do that, I'm going to try the best I can to help these younger guys on my team.
Yeah, and it seems like you mentioned a lot of off-season acquisitions. How much change has really happened since the last time you took the ice?
Yeah, I mean that's we made quite a few trades, obviously, and I think going into this year, I think the morale is really high, and I think everyone just bonded with each other really well. We just hit it off.
That's awesome. And coming from Jets camp, did you come in feeling like you were ready for the mentorship role and ready to really take the leadership role?
Yeah, I think going into camp, it gave me a huge confidence boost coming back to the season, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can from the camp and take it and apply it to my game here, and try to do whatever I can to help the team. So
yeah, it looks like y'all are shaping up for a really good season. And speaking of that, obviously a lot of folks have been paying a lot of attention. They're real interested in how you're doing. And I did ask earlier for some fan questions. And we have a couple from Jets fans, both who listen to the podcast and who are just on social media. One of the first questions we got was, did you really foresee the start of the season happening the way it's happened, or was this really kind of for everyone a bit of a surprise?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought training camp went really well before I left, and as soon as we came back, we went right back into business, and I honestly, it did blow me away, absolutely, but I thought I had a really good feeling going into the season, and I thought we were really prepared for it.
Yeah, it seems like it's just sometimes things start working out, and you keep working real hard, and at some point the points start following.
Yeah.
And do you think that you're gonna keep doing this? How do you see the rest of the season kind of going for you?
Yeah, I think for us, it's just showing up every single night and taking it day by day. Whether it's coming into the rink, going into practice, I think just not worrying too much about what's going to happen in the future and just giving all our best every single day.
Awesome. Somebody wanted to know what your biggest takeaway from Jets training camp was, and what do you want to really focus on to reach that next level?
Yeah, I think just practicing good habits and paying attention to details. I think those two are probably the biggest factors I learned. And you're on the ice with all those pro guys, and you kind of learn and pick up from the things that they do, and you try to apply it to your own game.
Was there anyone on the team in particular who you felt like gave some of the best advice, or really offered some interesting insights into what it's like to be a pro?
Yeah, honestly, I was watching Josh Morrissey play a lot. I was on the ice with him one time, and just kind of try picking, look at him and kind of see what he's doing out there on and off the ice, and kind of just try my best to follow along.
Yeah, if there's one player on the team that I would imagine sets a really good example, Josh just seems to be one of those guys who really leads by example. In terms of prior to getting drafted by the Jets, were you that familiar with the team's roster? Did you know any of the players, or was this more of like a pretty new experience overall?
Yeah, I knew a lot about the players in the team. Obviously, on draft day, anything could happen. So I honestly had no idea where I was going. So, but for Winnipeg to jump on, I was super honored and super happy, and yeah.
And obviously, you do have a friend on the team already, Colby Barlow. How did you guys become friends? Was it just some competitions before, or?
Yeah, obviously we've known each other. We have the same agent, and growing up, I played against him whenever I play Europe, and always played against him growing up. And then obviously in the OHL, he was on Owen Sound, I was on Niagara, and now this year we actually play him tomorrow. He's on Oshawa now, but during Dev Camp we roomed together, so I kind of just built it off from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're hoping y'all make it, and it would be awesome one day if you guys could actually play on a line together. As far as other questions are concerned, I think most people have generally had their questions through. But what are you looking most forward to in Winnipeg's future? What do you when you come to the Jets? What do you think your main goal is going to be? It can be anything really, whether it's playoffs or just really finding your place. What is it that you want to do here?
Yeah, I think just to showcase myself as best I can. I play my own game, and just trying to learn and add to that. So I think just coming into camp, just learning, obviously, like I mentioned before, the details and having the good habits to bring, and just try and learn as much as I can, prove myself.
And if you had like a fun fact about yourself that you don't think Jets fans know, but you would want them to know, what's one thing that you would want them to know about you?
Maybe I speak 3 languages.
You trilingual.
So I speak Mandarin, English, obviously, and French as well. I lived in Montreal. I went to full French school there. So,
how fluent are you?
I'm pretty fluent. Yeah. So
That's
I've gone
amazing.
down a little bit just because I haven't used it much, but I'd say I'm pretty fluent.
Yeah, actually, I think in Winnipeg there's a fair few French speakers, so I think that'll certainly resonate with a number of the Jets fans. But anything else you want to tell the fans before we hop off?
No, you can't caught me off guard. No, I'd say just that.
All right, folks. Thank you so much, Kevin. Really appreciate you for joining us. Obviously, Kevin, you've got a big season ahead. Other than your Instagram, anywhere else folks can follow your season progress?
Mainly Instagram. Yeah, I don't really have Twitter or anything else, but we're Facebook, so mainly Instagram.
Probably better for the mental health some days.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you, Kevin. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing what you do this season.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was Kevin He from the Niagara IceDogs, brand new captain. Really awesome. We will actually have a chance to catch up with him later this season, probably towards the end of the year, see how his year went, and check in on what he's looking forward to and what he's most excited about heading into his next season. But before we head on and chat about the upcoming Jets games and how things have gone for Winnipeg's goaltending, did want to shout out our friends and partners at Gametime. When it comes to buying tickets, we all know that it can be a bit of a painful process. You maybe add a ticket to your cart and you think you're paying, $20, $30, but you get to checkout and it says 60 or 70 and you say to yourself, did I buy 2 tickets? Maybe I got the quantity wrong. But nope, you check the fee breakdown and it's all hidden charges. Stuff you just weren't expecting. And you know what? No one likes that. No one likes surprises when you pay a lot more than you're expecting. Gametime has the same exact thing. They totally understand, no one wants to deal with hidden charges and surprise fees. That's why they have an option that you can toggle called all-in pricing that allows you to see what you're paying up front. It's great. It's going to save you time, and it'll also just make the process so much easier. Why hide charges and fees when you can just have it up front? And Gametime doesn't want you to just see all of that. They want to help you save money too. They have a brand new feature called Gametime Picks that filters out all the fluff to show you only the hottest deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time and money searching through tons and tons of listings. And of course, they all come back with a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and so much more. They'll even show you seat views before you buy, so you actually know what you're paying for. Who doesn't love getting a preview of coming attractions? If you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, go with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and be sure to use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. While we're at it, I also did want to shout out our friends and partners at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. All you have to do to run your game all season long is, again, pick more or less on at least 2 players, and you can do so all season long with PrizePicks. What makes PrizePicks even better is that they always put their members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You can get your money in as little as 15 minutes. And you also get a ton of protection. If you have an injury, say in the middle of a game, your lineup will still stay live. And of course, you can get 100 times your cash with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's just guaranteed. And if you're thinking about maybe what you want to bet on, PrizePicks is the best way to win real money with football. If you're thinking about maybe Lamar Jackson over under 90.5 yards a game for rushing, this is a great time to give it a shot. Obviously, as a Ravens fan, I tend to see him do pretty darn well with that. So I wouldn't mind splashing down some cash myself on that. If you want to get started, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Hey, friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for rejoining us on tonight's episode as we're just chatting about Winnipeg having an upcoming slate of games. Going to be an interesting one for the Jets, as obviously Winnipeg has a couple of tough opponents. They just faced a surprisingly tough opponent in St. Louis, although I think, I was expecting the Blues to be a pain. They've not been an easy team in the past, and I think that continues to be, a real challenge for the Jets. So, I think these teams that kind of sit in the middle of the pack, maybe they don't excel, but they still know how to frustrate you. They can be some of the hardest opponents to beat. They don't have to win every game to make the playoffs, but they will do enough to be a nuisance all throughout the year. And Winnipeg, to their credit, I think handled the game pretty well. Obviously, a couple of moments where they were maybe not thrilled with some of the turnovers and stuff they had, but overall, they got a big win, big road victory, and really impressive. But, Their next opponent is going to be an interesting test. The Kraken are not a team that I think a lot of folks are rating super highly. They have got a new coach. The roster has some interesting changes, and the goaltending continues to be a little bit of a question. But the Kraken are a very fast-paced, up-tempo team. They just barely lost yesterday to the Colorado Avalanche, but they're 4-3 on the season. They're in the middle of the pack so far, just to start the year. Obviously, it's very early in the season, so let's not read too much into it. But having watched some of the Kraken to start the year, it's rare that I actually watch other teams like a lot, but I was curious to know how Dan Bousman did on his return to the NHL. And I think what stood out to Seattle was that they play a very up-tempo game. They're a lot faster than they were in last season. I think that they are more exciting. They seem to be playing very aggressive, rapid counter hockey, which is the kind of game that I think tends to give the Jets fits. Winnipeg is stylistically not a team that tends to love really fast countering teams that can cut you up very quickly, especially if your defenders get caught pinching or something. That's just not a game that's comfortable really for anyone, and especially the Jets, who haven't traditionally been built on speed to sort of handle that stuff. This year's Jets team, I think, is a little more equipped for it. I think that they're so far handling business for the most part. It'll be interesting to see how they do against the Kraken. Seattle, I think, has had a solid start to the season, but again, I think that up-tempo sort of play has been a real challenge for other teams to handle, and I think the 4-3 record may be a little unflattering for some of the quality I saw out of them. Now, on the first line, they've got McCann, Wright, and Eberle. Interesting to see Wright has finally made it. I think a lot of people wrote him off despite only being 20 years old. I think he's just one of those players who certainly had a really high reputation because of his special status, but sometimes you just have to be patient and let players mature. And so far, Wright seems to be doing pretty solidly. If nothing else, he's got great line mates in McCann and Eberle to sort of guide him. And if you want good mentorship, Eberle especially has been around the block a few times and can certainly be that sort of experienced veteran presence who's also just still really good at hockey. Your second line is Tolvanen, Beniers, and Burakovsky. Tolvanen, I'm really sad that the Jets weren't able to get him. He's become a really instrumental piece of their offense. And, seeing him be a great goal scorer, I'm sure Nashville's probably not happy that they basically got nothing for him. But good to see him finally get a role. Sometimes, again, you just have to be patient and let players really blossom in the capacity that they were meant to. And I think a lot of teams maybe rush things. They don't always give them time. And, in some cases, they let them marinate too long, like the Jets have done in the past. But in Tovanen's case, I think they should have just been a little more patient. But, Seattle's kind of reaping the rewards. On your third line, you've got Schwartz, Stevenson, and Bjorkstrand. Stevenson, I'm sure they're not really thrilled with having, one of their big free agent acquisitions in, the middle six. But I think, at least from my perspective, I sort of expected him to not be as good as he was in Vegas. I think, playing with Mark Stone and guys like that really did do a lot to help inflate his value. So, wishing him the best of luck, but I think that there was a very clear reason why I wanted the Jets to maybe go a different direction. On the fourth line, they've got Cartier, Gord, and Tanev. We all miss our good old friend, Brandon Tanev. He's been a fun player for them. I think he's a real favorite amongst, the local Seattle folks. And, from his Jets days, I think we all know why. He's a fun player. He always works hard, fights for the badge, all that kind of stuff. On the back end, you've got Mahura and Larson, Alexiak and Montour, and Evans and Borgen. This is a very mobile group. They have pretty good skating. They advance the puck effectively. They can be offensively ambitious and aggressive. Definitely not a team that I think the Jets can afford to really, slip against. This is a tough opponent. And, Pittsburgh and St. Louis offer their own challenges. I think the Penguins might be the closest offensively to how the Kraken like to create. So I think if you know how that first game against Pittsburgh went, you'll probably have at least some insight into this one. The good news for the Jets is that, the goaltending for this team has not exactly been stellar. Grubauer and Cord can certainly be decent at times and maybe even help the team out when they're struggling, but it's not often where I would say either of them are like elite, right? This is not a high-end goaltending duo, and so, with the Jets' power play continuing to hum the way it has and Winnipeg's getting, some interesting contributions all up and down the lineup, I think that this game, for me, I would say it's going to be a close win. I'm giving it a 4-3. I think Hellebuyck probably gets the nod in net. I think this is going to be a very tight run affair. I don't think that it's going to be a runaway for either team. I think just like the Penguins game, I think it's probably going to come down to the wire. And I know people are going to look at the scoreline for the Pens game and say, well, that was a big rout, but only in some ways. I think you look at the finer details and you realize the margins were a little closer than they looked in the final box score. I think this game is going to be a little bit harder, especially because like the Kraken defensively are a lot more sound than the Penguins are. But again, expecting a big game. Give me your score predictions below. Like I said, I'm going 4-3 Jets. Let me know if you think Winnipeg can keep their undefeated record in the comments or at my social medias at HLLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, Winnipeg's success this year has had plenty of different components, but one of the biggest ones is the goaltending, and I want to chat about that in just a quick moment. Before we go too much further, though, did want to shout out our friends and partners at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's been a crazy 7 weeks through the NFL. I was just talking about Lamar, continuing to rush really aggressively, and it's been crazy for him, right? He's, not only throwing the ball well, but he's rushing incredibly well. And the Ravens kind of feel like they're the real deal. Maybe you're a Chiefs fan, though, and you're thinking the acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins is really going to be a game changer. If you're watching one of these teams, maybe in the middle of the game, and you get a hunch, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. So you can actually figure out if your hunch might have some legs. To get started, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. That's all at FanDuel.com. Hey, Winnipeg Jets fans. Welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for rejoining us on tonight's episode as we are just we're chatting about Winnipeg's upcoming schedule, really focusing on the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, we're going to be playing the Flames later this week. That should be a good game. Calgary is still one of the top teams in the league, at least so far. I mean, it's only a handful of games into the season, but they've played really impressive hockey. They beat the Penguins. They had a real narrow loss to the Kraken, but they've generally beat almost everyone they faced so far this year. So very impressive start to the season. I don't think anyone thought the Flames might be in this position, but kind of seems like they're doing pretty well. And they will have home ice advantage against the Jets on Saturday. So expecting a big rivalry matchup, but for the Jets, I think this year has been a funny start because I don't think Winnipeg is necessarily dominated in a lot of these games. The first game they kind of did in some ways, and there were stretches against Minnesota and Chicago where the Jets absolutely hammered their opponents. But I would say Winnipeg has really been driven by a couple of things. Special teams is one of the big ones, and the goaltending is the other piece. Connor Hellebuyck this year in 5 games, he's got 5 wins, a shutout, and a .948 save percentage, which is just pretty darn ridiculous. I mean, the guy, every year, man, it just seems like it's easy to take him for granted because, like, you're getting consistent, like, Vezina performances from him. You look at other teams around the league, and all these teams didn't want to pay him all this money to be their starter. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe they should have considered it. I think Winnipeg really lucked out that Hellebuyck was not really finding a match for a suitor. If they had, Winnipeg would be in a very different state without him. In fact, I almost don't want to think about this team without Hellebuyck. And even when I thought about, him being traded as potentially being a necessity, I don't think I was happy about it. The same with Scheifele, But for me, Hellebuyck in particular, I would have been absolutely devastated. Whether I thought it was the right call or not, I just would not have been comfortable doing it. And I think it would have been a really, really hard sell for the fan base. But, sometimes necessity steps in. Thankfully, the Jets didn't have to deal with that question. Hellebuyck's a Jet. He's locked up, and he is locked in. But his backup, 1 game in, seems to be doing pretty well. Winnipeg-Comrie, his is like his 3rd stint with the Jets now. I don't know how he keeps coming back every few years. It's really funny. He has like these 2-year excursions where he's off somewhere else, and then he comes back to Winnipeg. I feel like at this point he should just stay in Winnipeg. Just retire here, man. Like, it's funny that he keeps going to other teams because he's actually found the most success when he's been with Winnipeg. I'm not going to sit here and say that his numbers for the Jets have been like mind-blowing, but in his last season that he was here, he had a 920 in 19 games. That's pretty dang good. And in his first game against Pittsburgh, he's rocking a 929. I mean, that's pretty nice. And again, look, he did give up 3 goals, but when you consider how many shots and scoring chances the Penguins were creating against the Jets, it was pretty impressive. The first goal or two against, I think you could tell it was, his first real action of the season. But after that, he really settled in, made some tough saves, and just came away really happy for him. Comrie is one of those players that just seems to be really fun. And, when you see some of his like team interviews and little social media pieces, you have to see the one about him talking about what noise a jet makes. It is fantastic. The way that he breaks down all of these different circumstances and things for something that you really wouldn't think required that much consideration. He like really broke it down and went through it. Just a delightful guy, and very glad that he's back. And I think with this team, this is the one squad where he just seems to really find his groove. And I know the Jets defensively are probably a lot stronger than some of the teams he has played with in the past. But all that said, it's just nice to have him back. And I think it's really critical that the Jets get a decent backup that they can trust. Somebody who can eat maybe closer to 20 to 25 starts this year would be phenomenal. I know it's not going to happen because Hellebuyck always plays a million games, but I think it would be nice if maybe he got more of a break this year. I know that they've talked about doing it in the past. It's never really broken that way. In my mind, I feel like he still eats a few extra starts than I would like. And I don't know if that necessarily impacts his playoff performance, but maybe some extra rest would help Hellebuyck. I don't know. He's one of those guys where sometimes the more he plays, the better he feels. But, over the course of an 82-game season, how does that impact his playoff performance? You only have such a small sample size, in the postseason to really judge. And it seems like whenever the Jets get to the playoffs, their brand of hockey just doesn't really last all that well. So, I'd be curious to know how that does this year, because I do think the Jets are a playoff team this year. I said it at this, even before the season started. I thought that they would take a step back and they might be flirting with a wild card. But so far, they haven't really had to worry about that. Maybe later in the year it becomes more of an issue, but I still think that this team is likely to make it. If they missed, I wouldn't be like angry about it, considering if they incorporate the youth a little more, but I think the Jets are probably decent enough considering the rest of the Western Conference just isn't that great. There's not a number of immediate clear top teams that I point to outside of, maybe Dallas and a couple of others that really impressed me. So like the Jets have a wide open field this year, and it wouldn't be the worst if they can take advantage of it, but it probably will start in net. That is like Winnipeg's trump card over everyone, being able to pull out Hellebuyck and Comrie, Hellebuyck being the best starter in the league, next to Shesterkin, and you've got Comrie, who's a pretty capable backup and has shown pretty well so far. It's really hard to beat that tandem. So thrilled for the Jets, really excited, and just hoping that, the season ends a little bit differently than it has in the past. I know people always are like, well, you don't really need to change anything. The team wins plenty of games as it is. Yeah, it's absolutely true when it comes to the regular season. But I looked at their playoff record recently, and I don't think I realized it was as bad as it is. Historically, since 2017, 2018, they're like 9-19 in the postseason, which not ideal, if I'm being honest. And in the last 3 years, they have 2 playoff wins, and those are just games, not series, games. So it'd be nice if we can maybe have more than 87 games of Jets hockey in the year. Sometimes people get mad at me and they yell at me online, and I'm like, listen, we can all debate, line combinations and stuff, but at the end of the day, from April to September, we're all sitting there doing the same thing, not watching Jets hockey because they're almost always out of the playoffs early. So maybe we can think about this year figuring out some things to get this team over that hump, because I'd actually like to watch hockey deeper into summer, but I don't know. Maybe some people get tired of it. Let me know what you're hoping for the Jets to do, and if you think Winnipeg can win yet another Vezina with Hellebuyck. Drop your predictions for his season performance below or at my social medias at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. For tonight's episode, though, that's going to be all the time that we have. I thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day every day. We'll see you back here tomorrow, so see you then. Have a great night, and as always, go Jets go.